Hi everyone,
and welcome to another episode of ITT Podcast, which stands for In This Together Podcast. Our podcast is our honest take on relationships, love, and marriage, with the aim of sharing our views and experiences for you to take from it whatever you need.
So whether you're single, dating, in a relationship, or happily married, there is something in it for you.
Hi everybody, welcome to season 3, episode 1. So we are back, and this season is full on, right?
As always.
So this episode is called Are We Giving Up Too Soon?
Are we giving up too soon? Why are we talking about this? Why is this important to us?
I think this is important because I think in today's day and age where people are I think society is very individualistic. It's a lot about your happiness.
Yeah.
It's about what you want, your desires, your goals.
Yeah.
It's that main character syndrome at the moment that a lot of us seem to be in, or at least society pushes us into, I think sometimes.
Yeah.
It's encouraged is the best way to say it.
Yeah.
So I think because of that, we're taking that into relationships. And it's important to discuss.
It is.
To discuss if that's had an impact on us and what are we doing differently now, perhaps, compared to what we used to do, or the way we used to be. Maybe that's what used to help sustain relationships, you know? So that's why I think it's important to talk about, because I think a lot of it is linked to the individualistic society that we live in today.
Yeah. And also as well, I think there's a big element of social media and stuff. Because you mentioned, I'll just add it to what you said about the individualistic mindset.
Yeah.
I think social media pushes that a lot. It talks about you can be whatever you want to be on your own. You don't need anybody else kind of thing. I think there's a big push on, you can live life just be by yourself kind of thing, which I don't think is necessarily true, but that's just me.
You don't think that's true?
I don't think it's true. I think if you go through life just being by yourself and you never really get to express love for someone else, I don't think you experience life
to its fullest.
I mean, yes, you can be successful, you can have all the money, you can achieve a lot. But if that part is missing, I think you will go through your whole life like you will, when the time comes, there will have been a big chunk of it missing. Because it's a different feeling to love someone and to be loved back as well. Like,
does that have to be romantic love? Can it not be the love you have for your family?
Or that's a different type of love.
So you think that romantic
that's
love
a different, the love that I have for my siblings is a different love from the one I have for my kids, and the different love from the one that I have for you. Very, very different. And I know it's hard to understand that, but believe me, it's very, very different. So
yeah, I get what you're saying. So we've gone into it. That's what we wanted to talk about it, because I think there's a lot to touch on, like whether or not we're giving up too soon.
Before we talk about are we giving up too soon, I think the first thing we need to address, or we need to at least reference, is what happens that breaks relationships and marriages. What actually happens, the key things that happen.
Yeah.
Like the breakdown of, communication, the infidelity, those type of things. You have to touch up on those type of things first before we get to why we easily just run it away.
Okay, so in tackling the question, are we giving up too soon?
Yeah.
What do we mean by that? Like, what is giving up too soon to us? Are we talking about relationships? Are we talking about marriage?
I think it's both.
Okay, yeah.
I think it's, if you're in a relationship or if you're married, just packing it in, giving up too soon.
Yeah, giving up too soon to me is maybe you're in a marriage let's start with relationships. I think there's 2 types of giving up too soon. You could be giving up too soon in a relationship because I think we have higher standards, and rightfully so, because like I've said in the past, people should have standards and we shouldn't just put up with anything.
Yeah.
But I think because the world we live in is so individualistic, it has allowed us to be a bit more selfish about what we want and think a bit more about what we need and everything else.
Yeah.
That could be translating into like an intolerance when it comes to relationship, a lack of patience for each other. So when it comes to relationships, I think there's that giving up too soon, where there's actually a relationship that had potential to grow into something very serious. They could have maybe even been your wife or your husband, but because of the way we think in today's society, you gave up on that relationship. I don't have to put up with this. You don't give someone a chance. You don't accept that people are different. You're not accepting that people make mistakes, and this kind of like cancel culture filtering into relationships. So I think there's that aspect of it. And, because of that, you always feel like there's someone better, and you kind of move it into relationships.
The grass is green.
The grass is always green on the other side, right? So I think that is what I'm thinking of when I think of relationships. But also when I think of like marriage, I think there's something around giving up too soon in marriage where it's like, because of the way we think, the same symptoms, that kind of individualistic way of thinking, it's about what your marriage needs to be. Social media has made us think a lot. We see so much more. Like we have a social media page, people, you see other people's relationships, and because of that, you can kind of paint a picture of what your marriage should be. And if it's not living up to that, you could actually feel as though you're having the worst marriage in the world kind of thing, and then give up on your marriage a lot sooner than people did in the past. This notion of, we were talking about it last night, like for better, for worse, richer and poorer, sickness and in health, a lot of that is what marriage should be based on. But when we think of today's society, can we really say we're doing that? Are we doing for better, for worse, for richer and poorer, sickness and health? I think.
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Sure. I think it's more for display. I think it's more for, does it match what
I want to put out there myself?
Yeah, myself. That's why you see that, a lot of people are going through certain things, but what they've put forward is never what's happening in the relationship or in the marriage. Then you find that later on down the line that, they've been separated, or they've been having issues for years,
Yeah, well, that's what it means to me. Like, you're basically in a relationship, it could have gone somewhere, but because of all these other external forces, or, maybe even your own self-sabotaging, or thinking that there's better out there, you gave up on something that you really could have worked through. And gone far, or for marriage, like just divorcing for an issue that you probably could have worked through.
Okay.
So you were saying, we need to look at why are people divorced? What are the reasons that we can touch on now where we think, like, let's separate them? And some of them will overlap.
I think some of them, or quite a lot of them, would also have an impact on relationships. It's not just marriage. So, so things like communication or lack of communication, infidelity.
No, but isn't that what we would say? So infidelity is definitely, but I think a lack of communication is one where people don't realize that that's the reason why their relationship is failing. So like infidelity, I think, is like a reason why people break up. So whereas lack of communication, I think is like, I don't think people always realize a lack of communication is almost like the solution that would have fixed that issue, had the people realized that they needed to communicate better and more.
Yeah, but infidelity is the same as well. They hadn't cheated, they were still being...
No, but that's not the same, babe. Like, infidelity is like, they cheated, and you're like, oh, well, I don't want to be with someone that cheats on me, and you break up with them. A lack of communication...
It could be someone that does not give you the time of day, doesn't listen to you. They had listened to you, they would have still been in that relationship. That's what I meant when I said lack of communication.
That's true.
I wouldn't say better communication, so the lack of it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. What else?
Finance.
Finance differences is a big one, especially in marriage. I think finance was like the number one reason. For divorce.
Abuse. Those are not all the reasons, but we've listed some of the reasons. But I guess there's a question around, why does it happen?
I think even when we're talking about the individual reason, I think there is something around people breaking up nowadays, more so because they don't feel like they're getting what they need. And I think maybe what we think we need now in relationships is not what we used to think we needed. Yeah. So, for example, infidelity has always been around. That's not a new thing in relationships.
Yeah.
And I'm not advocating for this, but in the past, were people actually splitting up for infidelity?
Maybe not.
This is what I'm saying.
Maybe not.
So I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I'm saying in a world where we're so much more connected, we have much more universal views on things.
Yeah.
Like cheating, like, you know, we're a lot more aware of things like mental health, abuse. Like, we're so much more connected. If we think about the last 20, not even 20, I would say the last 30 years, like from the 90s, if you think of the internet, so not just social media, but the internet, Google, the availability of information has made us like one world in a way where we have like one overarching view.
Yeah.
Even though we don't, because I know I'm sounding a bit philosophical, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, in the past, everybody knew about infidelity. Infidelity always existed, but we weren't connected in such a way where what's happening in your marriage is somehow visible to others.
Yeah.
And in a way, you get what I'm saying? What's going on in our marriage is not visible to others, but it is visible to others in the sense that we now have like a social presence. We have the internet presence. So it's almost visible.
It is visible because if anything happened tomorrow, there will no longer be ITT Podcast. So it's a case of what's happened in their marriage, what's happened to both of them. So that's the pressure that people feel when in
relationships. And even like if you think of like social media in terms of like people get into relationships and then on Instagram there's pictures and there's videos and there's all that stuff. And then when they break up, they delete the pictures and videos of that person and stuff. So there is that, you know, that I guess that's what I'm saying. Relationships are much more on view. But also, even if it's not out there, so like some people will be like, well, this doesn't apply to us because we're not on social media, right? But I would argue that no, even people who are like in relationships and they're not on social media and they don't post about their relationship, I think they're still affected by living in a world where everything is so interconnected and intertwined because of that worldview, because of that.
I agree.
Do you know what I mean? Definitely. Yeah, because of that one way of thinking sometimes. So like what I was saying about, would people in the past have broken up because of infidelity? Probably not. Probably not as much as they would today, because the view of cheating or infidelity was not such a kind of universally thought of
that's a good point.
Thing, if you know what I mean. It was almost like you dealt with what was happening in your relationship between the two of you. If there was infidelity, you wouldn't even know if your grandparents like were dealing with it. It's literally the marriage is literally the marriage. There was they didn't really need to talk to other people about, or maybe they did, but I guess there was no that universal worldview of like, don't put up with cheating or don't put up with
basically those type of information were not out there.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Like there is now. Like now, there's so much information out there that you will find just one click of a button. You will find videos, pictures. You know, if you're being cheated on, you're this, you're that. Don't stand for a man that does this. You know, 10 reasons why your man is cheating. 10 reasons if you still So there's so many reasons, so much information. Whereas before, it wasn't like that. If there were things going wrong, you will have a few people that you spoke to that would help you, guide you through, advise you, and then that was it. It was something that a handful of people knew, maybe even 1 or 2 people knew, but now it's a case of, it feels like the whole world knows what's going on with you, even though that's not necessarily the case.
It feels like because we're so much more connected, and it's almost like whatever you're going through, which is also a good thing, whatever you're going through, there's someone else in the world going through it. You're not alone.
That's true.
But in the past, people probably felt more alone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They probably felt more alone, so they probably dealt with things by burying it or pretending it's not happening. Or whereas now we know we're so connected. So you're like, for example, if you're in an abusive relationship, like physically abusive, we've seen so much more stories, information, like there's so much more about that out there for you to know that you shouldn't, you're not expected to, you shouldn't stay in that, blah, blah, blah. So there is that element of like, before, we all know that physically abusing someone is wrong, but you are almost isolated in your bubble, in your marriage or in your relationship. You don't really know that there's so many people that go through this. So, for example, I remember when I was younger and I watched the Tina Turner movie, What's Love Got to Do with It? You know, that movie was so groundbreaking. I'm sure it's not the first movie that showed, you know, physical domestic abuse in a relationship, but it was, I just remember feeling like, oh my word, like that is so graphic, that is so real. And Tina obviously endured that, she lived through that, and you know, she came out on the other side. But just that movie alone coming out in the 90s when it did, it was so groundbreaking because it almost connected us to something that is so private and is so secretive and it's so individual. It almost made it this world issue. And this is what I mean about the world views. It gave it this world platform for us all to see and then decide what we all think.
I agree.
So, you know, I'm not saying if you're in an abusive relationship, you should be staying because in the past you should, you know, that's not what I'm saying. I guess I'm using that to explain the fact that I think that kind of thing, cheating, lots of reasons, because we now say, 50% of marriages end in divorce and marriages used to last so much longer. That was probably because there was so much going on under the, like being swept under the rug that people were literally just enduring. But there's that side. And then there's also the side of people were not as individualistic. And so they did allow more to happen in a relationship and give people a chance and things like that.
I guess there isn't any balance right now, you would say.
You don't think?
I don't think there is. I think what was happening back then is not necessarily a great thing or good thing, because you shouldn't have to just sweep things under the rug or, you know, just endure. I don't think it was a good thing, but I think now it's to the extreme.
Yeah, you feel like we've gone too far on the other side.
I feel like we've gone way too far. I feel like people are I do feel like some people are just looking for reasons to get out. Like anything triggers it. Anything little thing, they're not willing to work hard for anything. I feel like they are not willing to put in the effort in terms of like relationship wise, in terms of like marriage wise. It's a case of like, it should be this way. This is how things should be. And if it's not, they're not looking at, okay, what can we do? I'm not saying both parties, there might be, you know, a case where, you know, the lady is more like, oh, we need to work at this, but the dad could just be pushing back and just say, look, it's not working. You know, I do feel like both parties need to be a balance.
Yeah. And there's not enough of a balance. And I think you're right. It kind of goes back to what I was saying about the individualism, that because of that focus on you, you know what I mean? Like, well, there's so much focus on the you of, you know, it's all about
you're the star of the show.
You're the main character in the movie. And it's the truth. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that per se, because life can only be perceived through your own eyes. Like, you live your life. No one else is living your life for you. So you can only really experience life through your own experiences. So I understand the main character thing. I understand the whole kind of, you've got one life to live. Make sure you're in the best relationship you can be in. Make sure you're getting the most out of your job. You know, make sure you have what you need to be happy. But in the pursuit of happiness, we've almost landed at a place where nothing makes us happy, because we won't tolerate anything.
I agree with that.
We don't want to tolerate anything that doesn't fit with what we feel should be happening to make us happy.
And
we're not going with the flow.
And just to add to that, and what would make us happy are things that have been shaped by the media, social media.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily what actually makes us happy, it's what we think would make us happy, which is the problem. Because you often find that what actually makes you happy are the things that that person can actually provide. Some people are seeking a bit more. So social media is telling you that this is the things that you need to have. This is where you need to be.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily where you want to be.
It might not even matter to you.
It might not even matter to you, but because, you know, people out there, you know, I mean, I saw a clip on social media the other day where some lady was talking about, at the age of 23, I was doing this. 25, I was doing this. I did 30, I was doing this. I was here. I was earning this. I was earning that.
Oh, so
if you're sitting there looking at that and you're at 30 and she at the age of 30, she had already earned 200K per year, you'd be looking at your life like, have I failed?
Yeah.
You know, like, what have I been doing?
What was I doing?
What was I doing with my life?
Yeah.
You know, but then when you peel back things, when you look further into the situation, you often find that they were in a different situation from you. So they should be earning that amount money at that age. So basically what I'm trying to say is everyone is in a different boat.
Yeah.
Everyone's in a different situation. So
we're not in the same life.
We're not in the same lifeboat. So a lifeboat, yeah.
People who watch Manifest will know.
Yeah, we're not in the same lifeboat. When you have your lifeboat, I have my lifeboat. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that kind of thing does warp people's thinking.
Yeah.
And it makes them feel bad about themselves. It makes them feel bad.
And that is definitely happening with relationships.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off.
No, it is.
I'm always cutting.
It is because you see couples going on holidays, having, you know, random experience, different types of experience. And you look at your partner, you guys are not really doing that. Or you're trying to like force that. It comes back to the keeping up with the Joneses again.
I know, that's what I was going to say. We've had this discussion. We've had this discussion in a way. And this is what we were saying about our podcast. A lot of it, everything is linked. Like, so we did an episode in season 1 called Is Marriage Worth It? I think that was episode 2.
Episode 2, yeah. And
we talked a lot about what some of the causes of divorce and what's breaking marriages up. And we touched on some of this stuff.
Yeah.
We did Keeping Up with the Joneses, and we spoke a lot about the effects that being in this connected world has on us as individuals and has on our relationships and how we can kind of start to compete with other people, other relationships. So a lot of that is the kind of thing we're talking about in this question of, are we giving up too soon? Because it's that link between how we now perceive some of the things that cause divorce today that may not have caused divorce in the past. Yeah. It's about how we perceive social media and what people are doing on social media and how we bring that into our relationships and our marriage to end up giving up, you know? I think it's such a complex, well, maybe we're overthinking it, but it's like, there's so much going on in the world today that I think we're information overload.
I agree with
and
that.
Because of that, it's almost like when you receive too much, you just want to shut down. You just want everything to just stop, right? Yeah. And so that could be one of the reasons why even in relationships before marriage, you're even giving up because you're in a place where it's like there's podcasts like us talking about marriage, talking about relationships, what you should be doing, your standards. There's all of that information. There's things about your mental health and, you know, take some time to yourself, you know, go on spa days. There's all of that information to compile. Then there's all the information about health and, you know, what you eat and So you've got these pockets of information, almost like rule books, almost like guidance on things in all these different areas of life, like career, health, you know, like mental health, relationships, family. There's so much out there for you to try and do right. Even productivity stuff, like on YouTube now, there's so much stuff about how to organize your calendar, how to organize your day, so there's so much, like almost like a robotic way of living life if you listen to all the advice in terms of what you should be eating, how you should be exercising, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, so basically social media is trying to tell you.
Do you think it's all social media? Is it not just the media?
Okay. The media is literally putting it out there how you should live. Like literally from when you get up in the morning to when you go back, you straight back into bed. Like literally trying to dictate how you live.
And they mean well.
They mean well.
Because those things are there to help you. They're saying these things because it's like, you know, this is how you can deal with stress. This is how you can deal with... But in a way, some of it causes the stress. Some of it causes the anxiety.
And I agree. And sometimes I think what people struggle with is to extract what as you said before, is information overload.
Yeah.
So now to navigate through all of that, you need to be able to stop and say, look, what do I need from all of this?
Yeah.
I need this, I need that, and then be on your way.
Yeah.
Because if you try to like just take on board literally everything, you're not going to become, you're literally going to be living somebody else's life and not your life.
Yeah. You're not deciphering. You're not being like, I agree with this, I don't agree with this. And I completely get it.
Which is a lot of work. It's a lot of work to pick up lots of information and decipher it and be like, I don't want this.
Yeah, and people weren't required to do that before.
So people had the energy to focus on their relationship, on their marriage, because it was like, it's just me and you, we're going to work through it.
Yeah.
Now you're going to go away and check the internet for information on how to deal with someone that's not communicating well. And while you're doing that, things will pop up to say, oh, you know,
are you
getting enough sleep? You're like, well, yeah, I'm not getting enough sleep. How many hours of sleep do I need?
Are you happy with your job?
Are you happy? I need to find another job. Oh, yeah, where's my CV? Before you know it, you're doing 101 things. And, you know,
you're looking at all these different aspects of your life when you should
be looking at how to communicate, how to get your partner to communicate better.
Yeah,
it's just shifted from that. So I think, you know, it's become like a distraction for us.
Yeah.
It's a huge distraction.
And this is why our podcast, I remember when we first started our podcast, we were thinking about, okay, what should be our kind of motto or our tagline? We really struggled because we didn't want to say something that was like promising, you know, giving you the secrets to a happy marriage, like, because we don't have the answers like that. No. We really don't. We're living in this world like everybody else.
Yeah.
And that's why we settled with, you know, for you to take from it whatever you need. Like literally, we just want to have conversations about some of the stuff that we're all experiencing. Yeah. And we're not all experiencing it, but that most of us are experiencing. And to unpack it, to be like, what is all this about? Like, what is all this about? And then, you know, if you agree with something I say, or you agree with something Frank says, then, you know, take that and make of that what you will, you know, take from it what you need. But it's true. We live in a world where, you know, it's all about deciphering information. That's almost a task in itself that people didn't have. And that's why I'm saying, like, even in relationships, people may be giving up too soon because there's just so many different ways to deal with a relationship and so much information that when you actually get into a relationship, it's a lot more work than it was supposed to be because you're almost trying to do it right.
Yeah, I agree.
As opposed to just do it. You know what I mean?
I agree.
And then when you encounter like difficulties with the person you're with, you then start to feel like it's this person. Yeah. It would be easier if it was the right person and you get rid of this person onto the next.
I agree.
And now in the world of like Tinder and, you know, Spartanburg, just like, let's just go find someone else.
Yeah. We're trying to find that perfect life. Trying to find that perfect partner.
When before people were just trying to find a partner.
Trying to find someone that can actually relate to someone that can actually say, oh, I love this person. I think now it's beyond that.
Yeah.
It's not just about the love. And I know people will be like, oh, that's not true. It isn't. No, but if you just stop everything around you or what's out there in the media, if you cut all of that out and just look at your partner and say, you know, I got with this person because of who they are.
Wow.
You realize that none of that other stuff matters. It doesn't matter. I mean, we constantly reevaluate ourselves in our relationship and look at where we are, because sometimes, you know, working hard, trying to achieve things can get out of hand.
Yep.
I mean, in our next episode, we're going to be talking about juggling and how, you know, the risk and the issues with juggling and relationship. But we constantly check ourselves to say, look, are we doing the right thing? Are we being there for each other? Because there's this notion of you've got to get from here to there, from there to there. Like this progression, kind of like, you know, marathon.
Progression marathon. That's
just keep going. Just keep going. But it's like, okay, but where do you stop then? Where do you, you know, check? Where do you just stop and just take a look at your partner and find out, okay, this is where we are.
Yeah.
How are we today? Like, how are we doing? How is our relationship? Like, where are we like right now? Like, I feel like we don't do that enough. And then, you're prodding along, I'm doing the same thing. And then it gets to a point where we both want different things because we haven't been communicating, we haven't been talking and whatnot. So it becomes a case of, well, it seems like, we've now grown apart.
Yeah.
Of course you grow apart because you're growing in a marriage. So if you're not coordinating news, if you're not coordinating
thinking and
views and stuff like that, you go separate ways.
Yeah. And I think that is, if we're looking at giving up too soon in a marriage, that is a symptom of marriage in today's life. Because we are so individualistically minded, everything is focused on the individual. We're ending up with relationships where you have two individuals in a relationship, which we encourage because we have said before, maintain your sense of individuality. Don't start to like merge to the point where you feel like you don't know where you start and they begin, and then you lose yourself in that relationship and you're not able to really find a voice. But as much as you need to be an individual and maintain your sense of self, we are very individualistic in the way I wouldn't say we're individualistic. I would say we maintain a sense of individualism in our relationship, but we move together.
Yes.
Now, that's going to be hard to explain because even I don't understand how we do it in our relationship.
It's not hard to explain. The thing is, we've got good communication in our marriage. So we constantly test each other in terms of views. For example, you were putting something to me that you've heard in the media, and we'll sit down and have a little discussion about it. Yeah, because you try to understand my views on it.
This is why we even started this podcast, because we used to go this all the time,
quite a lot. So it's a case of so in doing that, when you become comfortable doing that, then you can bring anything to the table.
Yeah.
Things like when I stopped eating eggs and stuff. That's random, but it's one of those things, because you grow.
Yeah.
In a marriage.
Let's just say he eats eggs again now.
I'm back to eating eggs again. Yeah, that was just a slight blip.
That was like 2 years if you don't eat eggs. That was hard. So, but so we had those. Yeah. Yeah, we had conversations. Yeah. I understood what was going on with you and how you felt and stuff. Yeah. So I definitely get it. Yeah, we're individuals, but we move together. And you're right. It is that communication. It's that doing things together, date nights, the planning, like when we plan for the year, when we think about what we want to do next month, when we review something. Yeah, anyway. Okay, so there is all of that in our relationship that keeps us, And I think this is what we're trying to say. Like, we have the outside world, but we have a world that we've created for ourselves as a relationship. Yeah. Like, it's like our little relationship world. Yeah. Yeah. In a way that works for us, it's which like allows bubble. Us, it's our bubble. It allows us to shut out the noise of the outside world. And so it's like, sometimes we let in information, but it comes into our joint world and we talk about it together and we process it and we don't always have the same view, but we want to know what each other's view is and we want to understand where the other person stands.
Because that's important, because if things are shifting for your partner, you need to know. Because obviously you met this person, you've been married for several years or whatever, and then it's not having specific or certain views that is different to what they had before. There might be underlying issues taking place that you're not aware of. Yeah. So just talking through something as simple as something like not eating eggs or something in the media that people are talking about. Yeah. They may feel strongly about it, and that may trigger further conversation that need to be had. So those kind of things are important because we're all adults. Things will change as we get older. Yeah. Tolerance will become more challenging.
Tolerance levels definitely will change, and your views change as well.
So if you're not communicating, if you're not, in it together, if you're not discussing things together, if you're not working together, if you're not moving towards one direction together, then there'll be lots of issues.
Yeah. And so it's that is what I was trying to say, in that you can't be two individuals in a marriage. Like,
it just wouldn't work.
In that sense that you should keep your sense of self, but you shouldn't be kind of just doing your own thing that your partner has no idea about. And you've got your own hopes and dreams that is just not even linked to the marriage in that way. And, finances are separate, and you just come together to like eat dinner or do stuff with the kids.
Say we're married.
Or say we're married or go to parties. It's like you can't be individuals to that extent where you're like, you're separate and divided. You should be two whole individuals united in one common goal, which is your marriage.
I agree with that.
Yeah. And I think that is one of the reasons why we're giving up, because I don't think we're necessarily establishing that bubble. You know what I mean? Because everything is all about you and you're the main character and everything else. We're thinking about like what we need to do for ourselves. Sometimes in relationships, we're not trying to show up as a union and like that united bubble. You're not trying to create that world together.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a big problem if you're trying to transition from a relationship to a marriage.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not in that space yet. That's just a recipe for disaster. Yeah.
What would you say needs to happen for you to transition from a relationship to a marriage in terms of that individualism and unity and bubble and all of that stuff?
One of the things is transparency.
Yeah.
You've got to be open. You've got to constantly communicate with each other. I know in our previous podcast, we've always spoken about communication. We've always been talking about, have good communication, be more open. But I think it's more important when you're making that transition to share things with your partner.
Yeah.
Be very open, because there will be changes as you go along. So you both need to be aware of the changes. You both need to discuss the changes. I think that's one of the things people do not do. It's just a case of they were in a relationship at one point and then marriage just comes along. There is no transition between that.
Yeah.
It's like 1 minute they were boyfriend and girlfriend, and the next minute they were married.
Yeah.
And the link between that is broken. It's not there. They haven't formed it. They haven't built it. So things like finance, having the right finance in place.
Yeah.
Knowing what each other's stance on finances are.
Yeah. How you want to deal with finances in a relationship in a way that you both agree with.
Exactly. Even things like kids. Well, how many kids do you want to have? How are we going to parent the kids? What's your those kind of things may just seem like, we can deal with it later or once we're married. No. It's important to talk about it right then.
Yeah. It's important to talk about it in the stages when you're trying to figure out if you're right for each other.
Exactly.
And at least have those compromises in place before you move on to like getting married. If there is compromises to be made, as opposed to making those compromises in the marriage, because then it feels like
it becomes harder to compromise.
And especially if you are thinking more individualistically, the way we are today, it's almost like, I don't want to compromise and I don't have to.
I feel like you're the one that's always compromising.
Yeah, compromising is a whole different topic, because I don't feel like you should compromise in a marriage. But that's a whole different. It's a whole different
flexible. It's a whole different topic, and what we mean by compromise may be different from what other people mean by.
That's the submission. Like I'm compromised. It's very different.
Yeah, but I like the word flexible.
Yeah, you should be flexible.
You should be flexible. I don't think you need to go as far as compromise. I think you should be very, very flexible. Yeah, both parties needs to be flexible.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about... Oh, go on.
No, go on. You go on. I'll come back.
I was going to say, so what about the way people are meeting today? Do we think that that's having an impact on how long relationships are lasting?
Oh, yes. In my honest opinion, I think it has a huge impact. Because the way people are meeting through social media, through, sites like apps like Bumble and whatnot, it's so easy that you feel like you don't need to work hard to keep something going. Because you can just click on the app and find the next thing, or find the next person, the next person. Because if it wasn't like that, if you had to work hard, if you had to get dressed, go out, meet someone, introduce yourself, get to know them, if you have to do that physically, like in person,
all the time,
I think you would think twice about, oh my God, getting out there.
Yeah.
I've got to start over again. You want to find out, okay, what's the problem? Let's work through it, because you chose that person for a reason, because you like that person. So why? And I'm talking about like relationship stages, right? But because of things like Bumble, because of things like, this social media, Tinder, it's so easy. It's like, okay, she's stressing me out. She's talking about communication all the time. I don't need that stress. I'm just going to end it. Find somebody else. Then the next person is going to give you exactly the same thing. So like, it's made it easy for us to, so the way we meet has a huge impact.
Yeah.
Just how
and I think also the way we meet also makes it, so let me just say this. So the way things are today, when it comes to dating sites, because we've said in the past that we met on the internet, right? So we met on Facebook. It's weird for us to say the way people are meeting today is making them not stay together as long, when we've been together almost 19 years now. So it's like, well, how can we say that? But I think the difference between how we met at the time, which was social media, but it wasn't in today's world.
No, it's not the same.
We were not meeting, because now there's dating sites, which I think are a good thing, because it lets you meet way more people than you probably could have met. But it's also a bad thing in that they're specifically for dating. So when we met on Facebook, it wasn't really dating. No. It was not the way it is now. It was like, I had a presence on MySpace, on Facebook, whatever. It was almost like your little presence on the internet. It wasn't the way it is now, where it's like on these dating websites or apps, people have their information, like 5'7", brown eyes. Yeah. I love going to the movies. I love walks on the beach and all this stuff. Yeah. You just did not have that kind of information.
You're now.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think
different, but it's not the same. It's not how social media is now. Like back then, it was a case of like, it was more fun. It was more like, it was more like exploring the internet, exploring new sites. It was a little bit of fun, but now it's a lot more serious.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of like, people are pickier. You're more choosy, because you're almost getting, it's like an advert of a person. So you're getting pictures of them. You're getting to judge way too much. It's almost as though half of the things that you would have gotten to know on the first date is on that page.
Yeah.
And so there's almost like a little bit of novelty taken out of it.
But I guess they do that not to waste your time.
True.
It's of like, you should know if you like this person or not. So click, meet them. Is it what you were expecting? Yes. Yeah. Move on.
Yeah. True.
So they're not there to be to then meet them in person and be like, so what do you like?
Yeah. And I guess you probably will still have those kind of conversations.
You still will.
I guess what we're saying about how people meet in today's day and age is that it's a lot more like, we know there's a lot more people in the world and we have a lot more access to people. So it is easier to feel like there's someone better out there. Yeah. And not to say there isn't, but it's just easier to feel like that and to give up.
It is. You start saying that there are more women in the world than men. Mm-hmm. And some men take that literally as like, well...
Yeah, as if all the women in the world...
Yeah, what you kind of think. So it's very easy to give up on something that could actually mature into a proper relationship and a marriage. And just try and find something else because you did not want to make that effort.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so what would we say to people about not giving up too soon? Or what would we say to people when it comes to what we would think they should do? What should they be doing? Because a bit of what I feel is that people giving up too soon, or like when it comes to marriage, divorce, for example, I think some of it is a bit of a red herring, because I feel like some people were putting up with stuff and they were miserable. That I've always said that. I feel like a lot of the divorce rates today is a reflection of the fact that people now have more information, so they know that there's certain things they shouldn't have to put up with. People have a lot less tolerance.
It's a good thing in a way. It's a good thing
in a way. So I think it's just reflecting that, and people have a lot more freedom, and they have a lot more, especially with women, they don't have to stay in a relationship. Yeah. So they don't, so I feel like there is something there around people giving up too soon. Statistically, it might look like that, but maybe if those people could have given up, they would have given up. So maybe it's not as bad as we think. But then there is an element of like, we are a lot less tolerant. We are a lot more selfish as a people, as a society, and we do have higher standards.
We do.
And so that is affecting the longevity of people in relationships in a way. And it's like, is it a bad thing? What are we saying? Are we saying that people should not get out of relationships?
No.
What are we saying?
No, we're not saying that. We're saying that from me, what I'm saying is, if you find someone, if you think this person is worth the chance, like you want to be with this person, then put your all into it. Be willing to go the extra mile. But I don't see the reason why you will be with someone if you're not planning to marry them. If you're someone that want to get married, there's no reason to be with someone if you do not see marriage at the end of the road. There's just no point. So if you're with that person and then you think, I would love to marry this person one day, then as soon as you're thinking that, you should be willing to do whatever it takes to make that relationship work.
Yeah.
But in saying that, you also have to ensure that that person feels the same way. So it's not a one-way thing.
Yeah.
It needs to go. It goes.
They need to be putting in 100% as well.
And I think if you do that, there's absolutely no reason why things will not progress
or not. What about if you're not someone that wants to get married? I mean, then you shouldn't be listening to our podcast.
Then you should. You can still. If you're someone that don't want to get married, just to ensure that there is longevity in that relationship, you still need to. The same thing applies if you still want to keep that relationship going.
Yeah, if you want to be with them for the long haul.
For the long haul, you still need to put in 100% and ensure that they put in the same. So for me, it's still the same thing.
Yeah, because marriage is just a legally binding commitment. You can have the same commitment, although I don't think it's the same level of commitment, but you can still have commitment.
Yeah.
Again, I do not think you can have the same level of commitment, but you can have commitment
if two people
and be married.
If two people come together and I'll say
and not be married,
they don't want to marry. They don't. Marriage is not for them.
For them, yeah, and they both agree that. Yeah,
and they both agree that. Then we advocate for that. Then the whole trust, the whole communication.
Yeah, everything we say. They're basically gonna have a marriage without marriage.
They're not gonna walk down the aisle. They're not going to have a party. They're not going to cut the cake. They're not going to do any of that. They're not going to stand in front of God and say, they're just going to cut out all of this bit, but they still need to be committed to each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And live their life almost like they have in a marriage.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's true.
What I'm saying.
Because those are the things that will ensure longevity. That's what will make their relationship last.
Yeah.
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 So what do we think? Are people giving up too soon? Yes and no.
Yeah, I think people are giving up too soon. And I'm saying it from my experience, from, knowing specific situation and specific detail. And I really do think people are not putting enough effort into their relationship. And that's a big, big problem.
And the funny thing is as well, we're not saying that if a relationship doesn't work out, you gave up too soon. Because there's some relationships that you're better off ending that relationship.
Yeah, because of what's happening.
Yeah, what's happening or what's happened or where you've gotten to. It's like, But when we're talking about giving up too soon, it's before the relationship even ended.
Yes.
It's the level of effort you were putting when you two were actually supposed to be working on the relationship.
And to be clear, if you're a person that was in a relationship and you're putting in 120% and the other person is not even putting anything into it.
Yeah.
If that relationship ends, then you shouldn't feel guilty. You shouldn't feel like, it's on them. Like they've not made the effort.
Yeah. Because you have to be able to look at yourself and say, I gave 100%. Yeah.
And if you can do that, then you'll feel confident enough to move on.
Yeah.
But it's when both parties are not putting They just don't want to make it work. Because they feel like there's a better option out there.
Yeah, or they're looking at things from their own perspective. That when we say, giving up in a relationship when you should be trying to make it work, it's things like patience. It's things like listening, like actually listening listening to understand the other person, like trying to find a way where you guys can be on the same page. So it's like, you could be in a relationship for 3-4 years before you got divorced and you guys already gave up.
You already checked out.
You were not trying to be patient with each other. You weren't trying to spend time together, talk to each other, understand each other, put things in place. You were just kind of in the relationship complaining, in complaint mode about what you want and people not meeting your needs in that relationship, as opposed to actually trying to work together. And I've seen couples do that, where it's like, you two are just
coexisting.
Yeah, you're just coexisting, and you're not thinking about how this is going to impact your relationship down the line. It's almost like you're kicking divorce down the line, as opposed to actually dealing with the issues to try and overcome them.
I agree. And I think there needs to be more done on how people can work on longevity. In terms of like, because I think we talk a lot about, how to keep a man, how to keep a woman. That's all good, but those things are all individual things. They need to come together.
Yeah, longevity.
Because that's important. But when we talk about longevity, it brings out things like you've already listed, things like the communication, things like the listening, even just things something as small as active listening. You have to practice it. Practice it. Even the best people, the best listeners in the world will tell you that, yes, it's something that you have to stop yourself from doing, in terms of like interrupting and actually listening to what the person is saying, not listening to respond to what the person is saying.
And even like when you have disagreements, or when the person says something to you about what they're not happy about, not taking those things as like a personal attack, making sure that when you hear what your partner is saying, you're not internalizing it. Because we have so many experiences in our life prior to being with our partners, that we have things that trigger us and make us feel a certain way, and maybe like they touch on our self-esteem, or it touches on our sense of self-worth, or you're not actually thinking about the fact that this person is trying to communicate something to you so that you guys can get to the other side and be happy. You're thinking of it as a personal attack. And then it leads into an argument. Like one thing we tried to do in our relationship now, and we weren't perfect at it, we're still not perfect at it, but we were not great at it in the beginning, and it took a lot of work, is trying to deal with issues as issues and not internalize that or project that issue onto the other person as like a stain on them as a person.
That is really important. Because once you get with someone, and especially when you're married, every discussion, every issues, you cannot internalize it. Like you just cannot do that, because if you did that with everything, then you're just gonna want to run away.
You're gonna run away. You'll be like, well, if I'm so bad, why?
That's why sometimes you hear that. If I'm so bad, why are you with me?
Because you've internalized the issue, and it's like, no, this is something that I'm finding hard to deal with in this relationship. Let's find a way around it. Let's try this. Let's try that. No, you're there thinking about, well, this is who I am. Why do you even stay with me if you don't like me? It's like, it's not about not liking you. It's, I like you. I love you. I just want us to find a way where this thing that you do can stop impacting our relationship, because it's having a negative impact. So it's one of those things where it's like, you need to be able to sit down and talk about the issue as a separate thing from you as a person. It's hard to explain, but I guess what I'm trying to say is you've got to think about you and your partner against the issue. Not
that's the best way to
you against your partner who had the issue. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. I think that's the best explanation for it. It's about be solution focused. So if there's a problem, let's tackle the problem together. Doesn't matter who it's coming from. Who's the person that's displaying that issue. It's like, okay, you're not communicating well in this relationship. Okay, how can we change that?
What's making you not communicating? Maybe you don't feel comfortable. Maybe you're not getting the opportunity to. Maybe we're not putting things in place where you feel comfortable with me and stuff like that. So it's true. It's true. The issue is the communication. So instead of making that person feel like you are a bad person because you are not communicating well with me, looking at the issue of not communicating and tackling that by trying to understand what the issue is with it and how to come out on the other side.
I agree.
So you think, people are not trying as hard. I agree with you. I don't think people are trying as hard, but I feel like people have too much information and there is too much noise. I think there's so much noise that people don't know how to go about relationships nowadays.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. They don't know how to decipher
the
information and take what they need from it to progress their relationship.
Yeah. Because not everything will apply.
Yeah. But I do feel like some people just take everything on board and just trying to make certain things fit.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is why we always say, like, when we talk about certain things, if it doesn't apply to you, just leave it, because it's not something that is concrete, set in stone, going to apply to everybody, blah, blah, blah. It's just our experiences. Yeah. And it's us saying, this is how it worked for us and this is what we did.
Yeah.
And you can try it. But if, like, for example, you might have a partner that does not like the idea of deciphering conversations. Like, you know how we say, like, talk about your views on stuff and right? Yes. What if your partner is someone that's like, no, I don't want to talk about the state of the world today, or I don't want to talk about I don't want to go into depth about stuff.
Yes.
What if you have that kind of partner? Do you know what I mean? Like, are you going to sit them down and try and, like...
First of all, you find out why that is. There's always a reason behind that. Maybe it's the time that you're asking.
True.
It could be a timing thing. You know, maybe on a separate time, on a separate day, they could be, be ready to give that information and ready to communicate like that. So it might be time. It's good to understand why that person feels that way.
But it could also be that maybe you need to find out what does interest them. What do they like talking about? What does... So what we're saying about the kind of conversations you should have, it's not really about the kind of conversations. It's about having conversations.
I agree.
And going from there to understanding each other better.
I agree.
So we love discussing things about the world and social things and psychological things. And we love stuff like that because that's something we have in common. But for other people, it might be something totally different.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But do find out what the interests are, because as we get older, we do take on new things and relinquish old things that we're no longer interested in. So today it might be aliens. Tomorrow it might be, pollution.
Oh God!
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Is like, today I could feel passionate about
global warming.
Are we alone in the universe? Okay. And then tomorrow is
I don't care for it. Like,
I don't care for it.
Impacted my life.
I'm happy with my wife and kids, but pollution is a problem. How do we tackle the pollution? So fine. If you can only get that with constant communication,
and being connected in that way, trying to find out what your partner loves, what makes them tick, and
what get their juices flowing.
Oh, here we go.
What got me
enough?
What juices flowing? Tell me what.
I can't bother. No. Okay. I feel like we've gone on for ages with this one.
We have.
Okay, so our views are people are not trying hard enough, but I'm a bit more empathetic in that I feel like it's because I don't think people know what trying hard in relationship is these days. Yeah. And I think that's because there's so many different pieces of information out there.
Okay, sorry to jump in there, but isn't that specific to certain generation?
No, look at you trying to paint it on the generation. Are you trying to come from Gen Z?
No, I'm not coming for any Zs, any Gens.
Are you coming with Gen X? No, I'm joking. I think Gen X are millennials, actually. I mean, that's ours, isn't it?
Yeah, that's ours. But I do... Anyways, this is another topic in its own. Because I don't think we do need to talk about the gens, the different flavors, the different type of how they do things.
You're trying to say that perhaps it's the generation that doesn't know.
Yes, I think it is.
So people like 30 and beyond and below.
And below, I think because they're the ones that are, the media and the social media has influenced a lot on. Have influenced a lot on. Because I think people, even the generation before our generation, they deal with things slightly different from us.
A lot of them were divorced too, the generation before us, right?
they dealt with things slightly differently than what we did, than what we're currently doing. True.
I guess true.
You know what?
So we're the perfect generation.
I guess it's probably not. There might be something around the generational thing, but it might not be the main thing, because I think it's about
it's the world
what you know, and what you're willing to learn. You know, what effort you're willing to put in. So, but I do feel like this generation are more focused.
Yeah,
way more self-focused, and I think that would not help the situation.
But I don't think it's a generation thing. I think it's how in tune you are. Because I think you could be 45 right now, and if you're really like in tune and you're social media heavy, you will be just like the generation. That's because of the fact that you're connected, you're in the matrix.
Yeah, literally the matrix.
Right?
That's a good point.
So I think it's more about how connected you are.
Okay. So what would we tell people out there that are listening to us and say, okay, you know, some good points here, but
what are you saying?
What are you saying that?
I think what we're saying is trying is not breaking up with someone.
Yeah.
Trying constitutes being present in that relationship and actually trying to make the relationship work when you're at that stage of being together and you're not like dealing with issues. So it's like it's not just when things go bad, not giving up. That's not what we mean by are we giving up too soon. It's actually trying in your relationship when things are actually okay, putting that effort in your relationship, being patient with your partner, listening to your partner, communicating, spending time together, like having an actual active relationship.
Yeah.
That is the part that I think people are giving up on before they're even like at the point where we're going to break up.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? I think we're giving up sooner than we even realize.
Yeah.
And it's about looking at your relationship and saying, have I already given up? Am I just kind of now going with emotion?
Yeah. And there is nothing wrong with constantly checking, are we okay? Are we okay? I think that's one thing that people don't do enough of. I mean, we can say we do it, but we don't do enough of it.
Yeah, we're still
working on it. Like, you know, are we okay? And when I say, are we okay? I'm talking about, you know, as a couple, are we okay in terms of like where we're going?
Yeah.
Where we are at the moment.
Yeah.
The things we're trying to achieve. Are we doing too much? Are we sacrificing too much to try and get to
A or B?
You know, is there another way to doing that? Like, you know, are we spending time together?
Yeah.
Are we having enough date nights? Are we constantly?
Are we happy?
Are we happy?
Yeah.
You know?
So it's a lot of that. Yeah.
It's a lot of that.
But it's not like, I think that's the purpose that our monthly conversations and weekly conversations serve.
Because if you're in that headspace, there is absolutely nothing that you cannot unravel, that you can't bring out as, this is an issue.
Yeah, that you can't unpack and get through. Yeah.
So I definitely think if you love someone and you genuinely love someone, you will be willing to do whatever it takes to be with that person to make things work, unless being with that person is causing you harm.
Yeah.
It's threatening your life.
Yeah.
Then
and causing you harm is, you know.
Yeah, remove yourself from that. Remove that
toxicity, all of that stuff. You know when a relationship is toxic. Yeah. We don't need to tell you that. But, you know, I always say as well, when I'm in a relationship, I give 100%. Because I want to know that if it didn't work, I gave 100%. And it's more about me knowing to myself that I gave 100%.
Yes, that's important.
So even when me and you've had issues in the past, you know, and sometimes you've been prideful, I will come to you and be like, Frank, we need to sort this out.
I know.
Because that's me saying I'm giving 100% to myself.
Yes.
Because I could be prideful in that moment too.
I agree.
But I know that if I look back at that situation and we broke up, I'll think I could have gone to him. Why didn't I go to him?
Yeah, but
you know what I mean?
But you know what? When you do that, you know, as a man, it chips away at my pride. It embarrasses me. You understand that? It literally embarrasses me. It makes me think about myself. Like, I should be leading by example. And then this small picky is now telling me, you know, I'm joking.
I know.
It makes me feel a certain way as a man that, I think that chips away at my pride.
Yeah.
And next time we argue, I will be the one that will then come to you and say, look, you need to talk through this.
Yeah. I mean, I don't do that as much anymore.
No, you don't.
And so, yeah, it's true. It probably did chip away.
It definitely, it took a big chunk out of it. Like, pride gone.
Yeah.
Most of it gone. Like,
And maybe this is why I'm always talking about being vulnerable. We had the episode in season 1 about vulnerability, and this is what it's all connected.
Yeah, connected.
Like medicine. It's all connected. Like, this is what we're saying about, like, I don't stop myself from being vulnerable. So I think there's strength in vulnerability. So coming to you and saying, listen, do you want to work through this? Should we, we lean more to we lean too much to each other to play game. It allows me to be vulnerable, but at the same time, it makes me strong. And at the same time, it allows me to say, I gave 100%.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you need to be able to look at yourself and say, yeah, I gave 100%. So if it doesn't work out, that's why I never understood why people would be like, oh, the relationship didn't work out. You need to take a year to reflect and be by yourself. I never felt like that's not necessary to me, because I'm like, I gave 100%. Yeah. I know exactly where it failed. I know where it went wrong.
Nothing to reflect. Like if you put in your
while I'm in it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Reflect while you're in it.
Yeah.
And do your best to try and resolve the issues. Because once the relationship is ended, there is nothing else to resolve. Because,
it's ended.
And if you get to a point where you've given your all, then that's all you can give.
Yeah.
That's all you can give.
That's all you can give. You can't have a relationship by yourself. I always say, the other person has to meet you halfway. And if they're not willing to do that, then you can move on without wasting time.
I think my message to young men, it's if you're in a relationship, you have to be willing to listen. There is a lot that you can learn being in a relationship.
Yeah.
So it's good to listen. Yeah, practice listening. They always say there are courses that talks about that's about active listening. If it's something you struggle with, work on that.
Yeah.
Like, try to get better at listening, because if you can listen well, you will often find out what the issues are.
Yeah. And you learn a lot about yourself as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Learn about it. And it's a good skill to have throughout your whole life, not just in the relationship, but outside of the relationship as well.
Oh.
So, listen. Be willing to give 120%. Like, be willing to be. It's either you're in it or you're out of it.
Yeah.
Don't have one leg in there and another leg angry somewhere else. Like, just be in it
or play game, trying to save face. Yeah. No, if you're in it, give it your all.
Give it your all. Like, be honest, be vulnerable. Be yourself, be expressive, say how you feel, and be willing to listen when your partner is expressing how they feel.
Yeah, and appreciate that a relationship takes time, it takes work. It's not just about flowers, pictures on Instagram, date night.
It's a marathon.
Yeah, and you said that.
It's a marathon. You just got to take your time, and you've got to improve together, you've got to work together.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's hard for people to envision progress it together. They feel like, one of us can do it, and then you can kind of support me, kind of thing.
No,
if you have that mentality, then forget about it. Because we are both going to make this journey together. If I'm getting to the top, you're getting to the top.
Yeah, 100%.
That's how it's going to be.
Yeah. I love it. That's a good place to start. Well, that's it, guys. You've heard what we think about whether or not we are giving up too soon in relationships and marriage. We've spoken about what causes people to give up too soon, whether or not how people are meeting is impacting that, and we've given our views on what we think we can do to make sure that you're not giving up on a good relationship before it's too late. We really hope you tune into the next episode, which will be about juggling a relationship and all the other things that we need to juggle in today's day and age. We appreciate everyone that takes the time to listen to our podcast, and we're super grateful for all your engagement with us. Don't forget to email us any of your questions, comments, or dilemmas at itt.thepodcast@gmail.com or send us a DM on Instagram at ITT Podcast, all one word. Thank you for hanging out with us, and we'll speak to you on the next one.
Bye.